call to order the Portsmouth Police Commission meeting for Wednesday, February 18th. I'll have the chief lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. Is there a motion to accept the minutes from the January 27th meeting and the February 11th meeting?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes of the meetings from 1/27/26 and 2/11/26 meeting.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So before we get to the public comment section, the original budget proposal produced at the February 11th public hearing was for a budget of $16,452,953, which was an increase of about 9.9% from last fiscal year. After review and additional information was gathered from vendors regarding service maintenance agreements, we were able to lower that number by $20,928. So the new police budget is now $16,432,025, which is an increase of 9.15% over the FY26. The FY26 budget. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we move the revised budget of $16,432,025 forward to the next step in the city budget process.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And so now we will open the floor for public comment. I believe we have one person here for public comment.
Public comment.
This is public comment.
Okay. You left it open last time for a public hearing, so.
It's still on the budget presentation.
Yes.
It's still here. It's still
This is public comment, so we'll get to the public hearing in just a second. Seeing no one here for public comment, we'll move on to the next item. The next item, not surprisingly, is the public hearing on the proposed FY27 police budget. We presented that on February 11th, and there were two people there with comments, and I believe there's somebody here now for comment.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
There's not that many.
Okay, we'll share.
Thank you.
Peter Huda, Portsmouth. So from the data that I was given last time, which was fabulous, I just gave you a handout. I had all the budget data previously loaded to a template, and what I did was drop in the actual and do a variance. So I'd like to ask questions from the roll-up from last time. I wasn't aware of your change, so that'll be good. So I'm just going to ask questions, especially from the roll-up on top of everything. And this is because I don't know, so a lot of these questions are probably known by you. The first question I'd like to ask, what is stipend eval Coopers, and why is it going up $13,700?
The Cooper Standards is a ranking officer contract, negotiated benefit. It's a fitness, I don't know exactly what the fitness thing is, but
Fitness stipend that the ranking officers receive if they do a fitness test each year.
and pass.
And the last contract, there was language that was put in there that pays them a certain amount if they were to pass the PT test. I don't see where that is on here, but that's what.
Okay, it's account number 018030, and it's on page 19, kind of in the middle of the page. The actual expended in '25 was $5,000, the actual expended in '24 was $3,000, but you're taking it up to $13,700, so I was just wondering if there was a reason.
Basically, that is it's the Cooper Standards stipend, but it's also for a performance for the chief. So that could be used or not used.
So you didn't increase the number of people participating or anything, they just increased their price? Is that what we could say here?
Pretty much.
Okay. Okay, let's see. So on the special detail, I know we are increasing our budget constantly. Do you see any of the revenue, or does that go all to the general fund?
On special detail, again, that's the sworn contracts, the ranking and the non-ranking. Special detail is for detectives, and it's also for things like the training officer, the SROs. Go ahead.
So just to clarify, that special detail is relative to on-duty officers. It's not the details that you see officers working out in the street.
Correct.
That's an outside detail. So special detail is a designation that you receive if you're not a patrol officer, but you're in detectives, or you're a K-9 officer, or in some other position that you're outside of the shift picket, completely unrelated to the outside detail work that is on the street. I think you're referring to when you asked, does it go to the general fund? Because the outside detail fund, and correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, all of that money goes to the city. We
Right.
don't see that.
Okay, so this is paying an outside firm to do a special detail? Am I
No.
No,
understanding?
so so a special detail, as it is in here, is defined as you're assigned outside of a patrol officer position. So if you're assigned into detectives, the school resource officer, or
Training
any specialized position outside of being a patrol officer, the contract was geared towards patrol officer positions, but if you get assigned to a position that's outside of patrol, you're considered a special detail, which then gives the administration, myself, flexibility that I can control your schedule, hours, days off, to that matter, where in patrol, they have a fixed schedule that I can't adjust. So they get a stipend in lieu of that to lose that flexibility or their control over where they're gonna be at and what they're doing.
Okay, so they still get their regular salary if they're in the detective, and this is on top of that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to get an idea of what professional services are. This is on page 20, and it's 039001. It looks like it's increasing 40%.
Correct.
So, is it, can you elaborate a little bit?
Yep. We've had a pilot program. It's a wellness program, which again, the chief can probably elaborate on that. We've paid for it out of surplus funds to see how it was going to go. And now, because it's cemented into the police department, we are including those funds to pay for that. It's a wellness check for every employee in the police department once a year.
So it's a mandated program for every employee in the police department to go see a wellness consultant that the department pays for.
Okay. The next question I have is on page 21, and it is, I was combining the printing lease maintenance, which I know is a printing contract, and then the printing. So in this time, we're spending almost $20,000 on printing, and then we also have computer and printer supplies down a little further, and we're spending $21,000 on that. So can you kind of elaborate on what we're printing and why, did the lease maintenance agreement go up?
We anticipate it going up. They're negotiating a new contract, which hasn't been negotiated in 3 years, I think. So we're not sure of that. Once we have the final on it, I think they sent the RFP out, and they're getting quotes in at this point. That could be adjusted after our budget is submitted. We just have to wait for that number. Printing, we print overtime slips, we print forms that the officers use, we print business cards, we print all that stuff. That's under printing, so it's actually things that are printed. In terms of the printing supplies, that's all the toner cartridges that we have to pay for throughout the department.
Okay.
And we have been combining our printing, using the copier more than printers at people's desks and whatnot. So we'll see how that flushes out once the new copier maintenance comes through.
Okay, thank you. This one is probably because I'm trying to understand, and this is the whole department. And correct me if I'm wrong here. So I'm looking at page 22, and this is the clothing allowance and the clothing. So if I add both of those together, this year we're at $108,446. So is this just clothing for officers and whoever? Is this vests and everything else, or is that listed in equipment?
So the clothing allowance is in the contract for the sworn and the non-sworn, and, excuse me, also like the ACO and whatnot. The clothing is officer outfit, usually. It's also when the supplies of all the things that they wear, from the gun belt, because that gets wear and tear. So it's basically the clothing is to outfit, and it can cost us almost $4,000 per officer to outfit. So that takes up a huge chunk of that amount. And then the rest is to supply all the accoutrements that they have on them, from vest carriers, not the vest itself, that's under equipment, but the vest carrier, and all those items that they have on them, from belts to patches to everything.
Okay, so equipment is the rest of the stuff.
The equipment is the actual equipment, the firearm, the vest, the actual vest, which we get 50% reimbursement for, but they don't cover the carrier that they all have on them. And then it also does detective jackets. I mean, it's just all different things. If an officer has damaged clothing, it comes out of there.
Okay.
Yep.
So, and just to clarify, every new officer is completely outfitted with new uniforms and new equipment. And then every officer that's here gets a clothing allowance each year to maintain
that.
the equipment that they've been provided.
Okay, so weird question. If somebody comes in and you give them a uniform, if they leave, do you get it back?
Yes.
Okay. Just wondering.
It usually goes to auxiliary.
Okay, one question, and this is probably for you, Karen, still on page 22, the transfer from school. Now, it's coming into actual, but it's not in either budget. Is that because they haven't given it to you yet, or because that would take your budget down again?
Basically, that 49225, it's under, like, when you look at our whole budget and we have a grant page in the budget, that 49225 comes off of our budget, but they don't, for some reason, they don't put it in a budget line like the parking and traffic one, the 60,000. I'm not sure why. So that's why you see it only in the expenditure column, because we have to credit back any grants that come in, or external funding, which is that's what we call that.
Okay.
So I don't know why it's not listed in a line item, but that's how it was set up by the city several years ago. So I have to still account for it because we get that credit.
Right, that would help you.
Yeah.
Okay, and so the next thing, from the sheet I handed out to you. These are kind of different questions because this tells a different story to me. So, page 1, in admin, you can see the variances there on salaried uniform personnel salaries and how it switched. And the interesting thing here is the overtime and the regular salaries, how there's definitely an overage in the budget. So my question is, did you take that into account when you were budgeting for the salaries? Because I can't see the actual in 26 and 27, because you're still going up a little bit. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So salaries, overtime, and then regular salaries here, you had, you underspent basically 23 by 51,000 on salaries, uniform personnel. Then you overspent a little bit, then you underspent again, but then you went up from 435 to 455 to 472. So the other thing, I think when you adjusted your totals before, you included the increases that were out of contract in here. Is that correct?
In what year?
You had one a couple years ago, and then we just had the adjustment for the different contract.
And are you, I'm sorry, you're asking the question in reference to the overage or the underage?
Right, you were under, so basically you were over budgeting in 2 or 3 years, and now you're taking it up again, but you were still under.
So under budgeting, not usually the case. Sometimes there's a promotion in there of 1 or 2 people. Under budgeting, again, there might be a mid-year hire. We've had some changes in personnel under the regular salaries in admin. So that can account for the under or the over, things that happened during the fiscal year that were not planned when we submitted our budget.
Okay.
But usually they've been approved. If there were promotions and whatnot, the chief always goes to HR and the city manager for those, so,
Okay.
okay?
Okay, I'm glad to see you took a look at the computer maintenance and software. I also brought for you the GASB 96, which I think we talked about last time, and I don't know if that's going to help you pull some stuff out. I think you probably did that already. Next question, Auto Info Systems, which you said was IT.
Yep.
The traveling conference is going up $10,000.
That's correct.
Is there a...
Basically, they have expended, they have money in there for classes, because they have to stay up to date on everything. What we didn't have in there was the IACP conference for IT, which is something that they need to go to because they get access to all the new and improved stuff. So we've been covering that by decreasing expenditures in another line, but this year we're increasing that line to reflect what happens during the fiscal year.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, detectives. So this is page 4, and
In my document?
no,
Yours?
what would I handed out?
Okay.
So salaries, uniform personnel, you over budgeted in 23 by 220,000, over budgeted in 24 by 95,000, and then it went down in 25 to only 39,353, and then we're taking it up quite almost 123,000 again.
Correct.
So are you truing up for the adjustments, or?
No, basically what happens is when we have vacancies, there's been vacancies in detectives and we haven't filled them. So that would account for the under expenditure in that line.
Okay.
All right, and so then we get a promotion and then somebody leaves, and all it is the fluctuation of vacancies.
Personnel.
We don't hold all the vacancies just in patrol. A patrol person can be promoted to detectives, and we backfill that patrolman, but it still leaves a credit there in detectives until
Okay.
it's filled.
Okay. Thank you. Dispatch, page 5. We've got regular salaries and overtime. Now, I'm trying to understand this and remember what was going on with your history.
Yep.
So this is like the same situation, but this is a lot bigger. 23, you budgeted 600,000, you only spent 370.
Yep.
24, you budgeted 667, you only spent 334.
Yep.
And 25, we budgeted 739 and we only spent 356. And now we're taking it up again to 707 in 26 and 748. So the thing that caught my eye here was that on the other side, the overtime was up big time. So are we using overtime to fill?
Vacancies.
So you're increasing the amount in regular salaries to cover the overtime? Because you can move it around?
I'm sorry, can you just
Okay,
repeat that?
so if you put, on most of these, the regular salaries were budgeted high, but the overtime was budgeted low. So are you trying to even those out and account for the overtime that you think is going to be there as far as the salaries go?
Basically, it's all vacancies. We budget for all the staff, for 9 dispatchers, a supervisor, and then part-time on-call fill. So we budget for all that for the full 9 positions. But we've had so many vacancies in dispatch for several years, but they're an hour-for-hour fill. There's no, like in patrol, if somebody is out or we have a vacancy, we may only have to fill 4 or 5 hours of that shift. In dispatch, it is hour for hour on overtime. So you'll see, I don't put the overtime up. The overtime is my overtime base is based on if you're fully staffed
Okay,
for typical usage. So I'm not going to put that number up because I know I will have salary savings to offset the overtime. And so,
right, okay.
and so that's what it is. But we have to budget for the 9 positions.
Just to
because
clarify,
they
Karen, it's
will be
10
filled.
positions.
10 positions, I'm sorry. So it's 10 positions.
So are you doing some magic? How does this work with the fire that are assisting you in dispatch? Do you have to pick up their salaries in overtime?
In overtime,
So it's all overtime as far as your budget goes?
correct.
We have to eat that. We eat their overtime out of our budget.
Wow, okay, thank you.
Yeah. So they are part officers that fill in. Again, we have part-time people that come in.
One quick question on page 6. I'm looking at fleet maintenance.
Yep.
Gasoline's going up quite a bit, almost 20,000, which is interesting because it's kind of down. Do you hedge on that, or is that done by the city?
I'm trying to see. I don't have my glasses. Sorry. Let's see.
Gasoline.
Okay.
Yeah, I went down, I was gonna say, I think we went down 5,000. Trying to think. Oh, no, that's repaired vehicles, sorry.
It's to the right, Karen.
I know.
Yeah, you went from, the actual for 25 was 88,494, and then you went up to 104.
Okay, I'm sorry. For FY '26,
26, and you kept it for 27.
correct.
Okay. The other question I have is on the vehicle outfit. Now, you're going up and down, and I understand that you're doing that. Is there a reason this isn't included in capital and in the rolling stock instead of putting in your operating budget?
Actually, when we put in for a vehicle, we put in for a full outfit, just a regular transfer of equipment and whatnot, but there's usually, under vehicle outfit, there's usually other pieces that wear and tear, extra, like we had to outfit a Cana ACO truck that wasn't included in her cost for her truck. There's just miscellaneous things. Sometimes we have to replace a radio. Sometimes we have to, there's just miscellaneous things that aren't included in just the buy a car, outfit a car. there's other pieces that have to go with it that you just have to have monies there to,
Because generally that goes in capital. That would also help your budget.
but we do, when, like, the price of a car is 40 or 50,000, we put in, 65,000, because to outfit a car and do all the change of equipment and whatnot, it's in there, it's in the capital, but there are other things outside the capital, that you have to be able to outfit a car.
Oh, that you can't capitalize? Is that what
Huh?
you're saying? That you
Yeah.
can't okay.
Yeah, it's just unexpected things that come up.
Okay. Okay, next one, same page, general patrol. Now, this one was also interesting, especially with the swap between the salaries, uniform personnel, and the overtime. And it's the same situation as probably the detectives, where you had a surplus of 345,000 on the salaried personnel in '23. You had 254 in '24. And in '25, you had 370,000, and your overtime did not come close to being, needed to be covered.
Correct.
So, is there a reason that that it's that much, just because of the unknown, or?
It's the vacancies. The savings of the salary savings in the patrol, it's the savings, but unlike dispatch, where we have to hire hour for hour on that, in patrol, sometimes we don't have to cover a full shift, so the overtime won't be like the dispatch.
Okay. Okay.
And we do return the funds. We have returned the funds if they're not needed for overtime.
Right, it's your extra,
Yep.
but you should, in some people's opinion, you should be entitled to that, but. Let's see, one more little question on general patrol. The travel and conferences are increasing, they're up to $20,000. I guess I'm trying to understand what patrol actually goes to conferences for, that's not here,
There's all kinds of different training. You have, we have DWI experts that attend conferences that are located all over, not here, Portsmouth or New Hampshire, maybe, there's a IACP DWI conference which moves around the country. There's drug recognition experts. That's another specialized training that the training may attend here, but then part of that training is they ship you out to a different part of the country, and you do, because you have to get certain amount of qualifications of evaluations where they do it. I know one location's been out in Arizona at a specific site where I guess there's a lot of impaired people that drive around, and that location has been targeted as an area to do the training at, because you can do a lot of evaluations. And you're talking about, in general, 35 different officers that in patrol that receive all different types of training, so that's where those costs come from.
So you rotate them in and,
Yeah, it's not any one person, it's across the board.
okay.
And the other thing is that the governor did that mandated training where we had to increase it by, I can't remember how many hours.
Yeah, like over the years, it gradually increased, off the top of my head, I'd say like 20 hours per officer.
Per officer.
But that's for specialized training outside of the mandated requirements of regular, like use of force and firearms, all the stuff that the state mandates. You have to do an additional 20 hours above and beyond those training hours. So some of that training we just don't have here, so officers have to travel to get to those trainings.
And that's only been the past couple of years, and we kind of wanted to wait and see, because we do some online training, we do training off-site, we bring trainers in where we get free seats, and we kind of wanted to see how that fleshed out, not just automatically increase our budget by umpteen $1,000. So now we've kind of looked at it and see how it kind of fleshed out there. So we increased the budget to just go with that 3-4 year experience.
Okay.
I think a lot of that is just like some of the specialized training, like with forensics and cell phones and type of that matter. They're, some of them are week-long schools, and the tuition for them is expensive. So those were the costs. And then if you have to pay for a hotel somewhere for a week, that's an expensive cost.
Okay, that makes sense. Finally, I'd like to thank you for providing the actual and allowing me to do this. I went back and looked at the numbers. They tie right out. It was wonderful to work with this. So I'd like to thank you for actually doing your budget the way it's required by RSA 32A. Again, thank you for answering my questions.
And thank you for the questions, Petra. And Esther, do you have? Yeah.
I won't go into detail that Petra went in, and I don't know what she said the very first part. I apologize for being a wee bit late. But I do want to say that I went on today to try to refresh, and it wasn't up online yet. So I don't know, and I know I had called Petra, and Petra said she hadn't seen it. Is it up now? Okay. Sorry, I'll take that back. It came up. And then also I want to point out that, again, I want to thank you for adding the social worker. Again, with mental health, I really appreciate that. I do believe that all the tech information in your budget should be in the city tech lines. I don't think it should be in the police to budget. They've made the choice to take that on, and I would give it to them. I'd give them the whole gift. Because I think if we're truly looking at duplication, I just looked at just listening to what you said, Karen, about how it went up because of having to do those tech conferences, then that should be in the general fund. So I would encourage that to happen. Lastly, I was having a little kind of confusion about the revenues, and I'm glad you explained it to Petra a little bit about the resource officers. Where does that come into play? But I know last year I stated this, and I hope that we can continue on thinking about it. But as we offer services to other communities, I know we have a lot of small communities around us, and I know you folks offer a lot of services to not only communities, but the state. We need to see what our revenues are. And I truly believe the revenues should come back to you folks in your budgets. The school gets their revenues from grants and whatnot, and I know you get some grant funds, but if we're getting revenues from other communities, it shouldn't go in the general fund. It should go in the police budget. And I think that we need to start getting more revenues. I know you provide a lot of supports, and I know, like the firemen, we're just kind-hearted city, but the 22,000 of us should not be supporting the 10,000 around us. So I would encourage you, if you're doing acts of kindness in other communities, that we do charge for them, because that time we're still paying as a resident. The overtime, I'm paying as a resident. Newcastle, Rye, Newington, Dover, Exeter are not paying that. So I would encourage you to really think about your revenues and think about how that looks. But again, I agree with Petra. The budget was spectacular. Thank you, Karen. You were the only legal budget in accordance to the RSAs, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Any comments in terms of what Esther said, or? Thank you, Esther. I would also like to thank Karen in particular for what she's done with the budget. It really is, even for somebody who is not doesn't have an accounting background like two of my family members. It really is a pleasure to be able to read this, and it really makes a huge difference in terms of our oversight as a police commission. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Team effort.
And Petra and Esther, thank you for your comments. We enjoy interacting with you and being able to give you answers that for your questions. So thank you both for coming. On that note, the next item is, actually, let me take a look. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing on the FY '27 budget proposal.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next item, facilities update. I was, because of my legislative responsibilities, unable to attend the Blue Ribbon Committee meeting on the municipal building. So thankfully, Commissioner Fernald was able to do that. You want to tell us a little bit of what happened?
Sure. We were given a conceptual design for the entire complex here, not just the police department. From my understanding, maybe 12,000 square foot additions, reworking what we have here, but everything's just conceptual. So there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered.
Still cost yet to be determined
Correct, because
or estimated.
yeah, it's too vague at the moment.
Chief, do you want to add anything, or does that capture it?
I think that pretty much captures it. I think JSA has been working hard, and again, that's the first crack at, designing conceptual spaces within the confines of our current complex, and we'll continue to keep moving forward.
Thank you. Next, dispatch remediation plan, that's about to start happening?
Yes, we had the contractors here yesterday reviewing, looking over the space and just finalizing prices, and hopefully, we hope to get that project started within the next month.
Thank you. Community priorities. We, as I think we identified at the January Police Commission meeting, the city and the school department and the police department and the police commission were up in front of the opioid abatement advisory committee in January, looking for grant money to hire a second social worker. And we were against what seemed like at the moment significant odds. We were able to convince them to give us a 2-year grant for a second social worker. So I think it might make sense for the chief to talk a little bit about how he anticipates that social worker being used, what the focus will be.
I think as we have one social worker who's been working pretty much internally with all the different departments throughout the city and some of the individual services throughout the city, the second social worker will be more of an outreach person to get out and try to find some of the people that are in on-house situations and out there in the field where they're at, and try to get direct services to them is going to be the main focus. People with opioid dependency is the main purpose of what the responsibilities will be.
One of the little known and significant features of our presentation to the Opioid Abatement Advisory Council was when we went in there, unfortunately, we were able to tell them that in the last 2 weeks before the meeting, there were 2 deaths in Portsmouth related to opioids. So it's an issue. It continues to be an issue in Portsmouth, and this, particularly having a social worker focused on outreach, going to the various communities, be they homeless encampments or other areas in the city, is going to make really, we expect, will make a big difference. So congratulations to the department for making that happen. It's not official yet. We have to, the grant money has to go through the executive council. That we expect to happen within the next month or 2, I think. So hopefully we'll have formal good news to talk about shortly. That's it for the police commission business. Chief of Police, your items?
All right. I'm going to start with a letter of recognition we'd received from the community. Unfortunately, it was relative to a tragic situation that happened last year involving a juvenile. but a family member of this juvenile who unfortunately passed wrote a thank you letter a year after this incident that our officers had responded to, and just wanted to thank the compassion and the effort and the professionalism of the officers who responded and the dispatchers who handled the call. Unfortunately, the juvenile was not able to make it, but the level of service that they received from the officers who responded to the call had an impact on the family, and after, processing this for a year, felt the need to reach out to the department again and offer their thanks for the professional again and the compassion that the officers served in handling the situation. So I just wanted to mention that and let the community know the work that goes on from the members of our department.
It's a perfect example of the, putting aside all the numbers, the quality of the Portsmouth Police Department.
Next, I'm going to move on to overview of our recruitment and retention initiatives. We're working on the new pay scale, trying to add lateral officers that can hit the street with a relatively short period of time of in-house training rather than entry-level officers. We currently have a PT test coming up this weekend, and it right now is mostly all new officers, but the issue we're running into with new officers is they really take almost a year before they hit the street. So we're putting a focus and an emphasis on trying to recruit lateral officers that we can get out on the street within a few months.
And during that time when we're ramping up the new officers, who aren't lateral officers, we're paying them during that 10 months or so.
Correct, yeah. We hire them, they go to the academy for 4 months, they come back, they get another 4 months of in-house training, and then, virtually they have 2 months left to finish out the year on their own. And in that time frame, they fill some spots within the department as far as our ranks, but they're not on their own and working independently for almost a year. So
The more lateral, the better in many ways.
that's correct. Another initiative we have is we have a 30 by 30 initiative, which that is to achieve 30% female representation amongst sworn full-time police officers by 2030. I am happy to say that although we still have several openings in filling our ranks, recently we're up to 8 female officers, which is almost 13% of our force, which is I think is a pretty good accomplishment. And from where we are, although we're still down total numbers, we are hiring more female full-time officers.
I remember when I started on the police commission a little over 4 years ago, the numbers were a lot lower.
Crime analyst report, Mike?
Sure, certainly. So what we're looking at here is the average of the previous 3 years, 2023 to 25, to current year 2026 timeframe being January 1st to January 31st. Looking at these statistics and looking at the weather outside, some of our activity is dictated by weather and snowfall. But that being said, calls for service are down from 3,586 to 2,234. The number of arrests are down to 59 from 81. Offense reports or police reports, otherwise known, 192 to currently 165. Reportable motor vehicle crashes are up 3 from 37 to 40, and motor vehicle stops and offenses are down 331 from 613. And more specifically, the month of January conducted 331 motor vehicle stops 15 summonses were issued, and 40 motor vehicle crashes occurred.
Questions for,
Yeah, I've got one. Deputy Chief, regarding the motor stops, is that the reduction, do you think that's just a function of weather primarily?
Yeah, it's a function of a few statistics. In fact, we talked to command staff just earlier this week about patrol statistics, and there's a combination of factors, including staffing levels, just not having the amount of officers on the street to conduct the motor vehicle activity, and two, particularly within the last month or so, has been the challenge of snowbanks and narrow width roadways, making it difficult to, number one, set up radar safely on the side of the road, number two, safely turn around, catch a violator, and number three, overall, people are driving slower because sight lines are reduced, the driving is a little bit more challenging as is, and people drive the speeds they're comfortable with given the roadway conditions, and when the roadway conditions aren't good, they tend to slow down. So it's a natural occurring calming mechanism for traffic as well. So it all plays into it.
And in addition to that, we also talked about now with no longer enforcement of inspection stickers, isn't it pretty easy stop for officers for a probable cause? And now that that's been eliminated, that I think has had a pretty significant impact on the number of motor vehicle cars that were stopped.
just to pick up on that, so if somebody's birthday is in February, do they get the, given the, what appears on the surface to be the mess surrounding whether vehicles need to be inspected, don't need to be inspected, is it your understanding that if your birthday is in February and you're due for a vehicle inspection under the old rules, you no longer have to do that?
Yeah, so just to make it very simple, we received guidance from the Attorney General's office just last week as to an updated memo to all New Hampshire law enforcement agencies, which stated that they shall suspend all enforcement of New Hampshire inspection requirements, otherwise known as a traffic stop because of an expired inspection sticker. So officers can still make traffic stops for obvious safety and equipment violations, but simply having no or an expired inspection sticker cannot be the reason for a motor vehicle stop. And that was made official by the Attorney General's office last week. That went out to all New Hampshire law enforcement.
And that's in place indefinitely until further notice.
And there is litigation pending on that issue, and that remains to be seen. And just to be clear, even though you don't have to get your car inspected, you still have to register your car in your birth month.
That's correct.
Last question. And looking at the crime analyst report, all these numbers, the huge majority of these numbers are going down. So why do we need to hire more police officers?
Well, just because the numbers are going down doesn't mean that the violations are going down. We just don't have the officers out there to enforce the violations that are occurring because our numbers are down.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have to go back to my financial report. Karen?
Yeah, mine will be very quick tonight. We're currently 57.6% through the fiscal year, and we are currently tracking 2.85% below that cap at 54.8. So we're tracking well, and there's nothing outstanding that needs to be addressed. With the FY27 budget, now that you've approved us to proceed with that revised budget, we can get all the rest of the budget requirements in, like the budget narrative and whatnot, that's going to go into the new budget book. So we'll get those things done. In terms of grants, we don't have any grant applications to report right now, but the chief has forwarded a bunch of grant emails to me to go through and look. There's also congressional spending funding that we can apply for, and I think the deadline's in March, beginning of March, so we'll do that. In terms of our strategic plan, it is in progress, so hopefully have it done before May.
Any questions? I think, we are, we're done with all our business today.
Could I, Chairman, add one thing that I
Yes,
forgot?
I'm
From my
sorry.
That's okay, from my Blue Ribbon Committee. I just want to say that the Blue Ribbon Committee, the next meeting is March 18th, 3 PM, City Hall, Conference Room A, and it would be great if some citizens showed up for their input.
I second that and third that, if such a beast exists. It is very important that we get useful and timely citizen feedback about how to proceed and how we are proceeding with whether you call it a new police facility or a rehabilitated police facility or whatever you want to call it. The earlier we get feedback, the more we can respond to the feedback. It is very difficult when at the last minute, when a cost has been established for the building, it goes in front of the city council for the necessary bonding approval. At the last minute, there's an uproar about how much money is being spent, and maybe can't we do it this way, or what if we did it this way? It's really difficult to make those adjustments at the last minute, and we've been through that at least once in this process. And so I strongly encourage those who are listening to come to the Blue Ribbon, the Municipal Complex Blue Ribbon Committee meetings as they're scheduled, and feel free to reach out to any of the police commissioners or anyone on the city council or anyone on the Blue Ribbon Committee, which is, there is a website for that on the city website, to give feedback, because it's I can't overstate how important early and timely and often feedback is to us.
The time is now.
The time is now, exactly. On that, unless there's any other business, that is, I move, is there a motion to close the hearing? Close the commission meeting?
I make a motion that we adjourn our meeting.
Thank you.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And we will see you at the next meeting on Tuesday, March 17th.